Lawrence is here with us. Say hello to the people, Lawrence. How you doing?
Yo, what's good, everybody? Good to see you.
And, of course, we've got a lot of our own issues that we need to talk about today. There's some really pressing stuff going on. We're, of course, going to give you an update about what's going on in Grand Rapids with Patrick Lyoya and the police murder up there. There's a couple of really important local stories that we wanted to hit on first, of course. And we've also got some really critical national stories. We talk about some just harsh one down in Texas. Gonna be talking a little bit about money and politics. Also, a little bit about some stuff going on to our neighbors to the slight eastward in Ohio. There's a very important progressive congressional campaign going on there. But first, let's talk about there's kind of some breaking news with graphic packaging, and if you're a long-time listener, you know this is something we talked about on the show a lot. So let me sum it up best way I can. So obviously, Graphic Packaging International has responded to the pushback that they have gotten for basically turning a big chunk of the north side into a pollution zone. Some of y'all might refer to it as a sacrifice zone, where residential areas next to industrial areas are allowed to be polluted. There's that stench. There's a big suspicion might be causing asthma and other health problems, and the results of that. There's currently studies going on in the state of Michigan to conclude that, decisively. Those have not finished out yet. But what happened is Graphic Packaging offered community benefits agreement. Now, this is something pretty common if you follow municipal politics. You probably have heard this idea. Community benefits agreement, usually deployed when there's a corporation, the community wants to have some sort of agreement or relationship with them, which the corporation is supposed to follow. Although, most of the time these CBAs aren't even legally binding. Of course, I could go into a whole spiel about CBAs, but what I really want to put a fine point on, so what they were offering in the CBA were a couple of things. Primarily, it was like the $60,000 to ostensibly use, in this arbitration between several community members and the corporation. They wanted to hire a community engagement liaison. They wanted to host job fairs, primarily in, it sounds like the north side. Quote-unquote multi-use site improvements, which means, in layman's terms, provide some space for neighborhood businesses, food trucks, youth activities, and then for a community grant fund, and that's the $60,000 that I was just talking about. Now, Lawrence, seems like this. Okay, they're leaving something out here, and I wonder if he's. So again, all the complaints have been about the odors and the vapors coming from their mill.
The fact that, again, I'm a resident of the north side, and studies have shown that living on the north side because of said pollution will lower the life expectancy of the people in Kalamazoo by 14 years. It is not a minor thing; it is a very significant thing. So, you want to put money into food trucks. You want to hire more people from the north side to work in your factory. Cool. You could even go as far as what was it? Alaska did with their universal income that they did kind of program where they gave the residents that lived in Alaska, the oil companies that gave the people who lived in Alaska a $500 check every month because of them choosing to drill in their water streams and in their land, and the company cut some of their profits to the community. If they want to do that, okay, cool. How about the pollution, though?
Yeah.
Can we fix the pollution first, so that people like me who grew up having chronic asthma because of the factories on the north side polluting the air so badly. How about you fix that first, and on top of do all these wonderful projects to help uplift the community. I think fixing that first might go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty typical example of when you get like one of these big corporations, they get caught being bad actors in the community. The first thing they go to, instead of like tackling the problem directly, they will basically launch these PR initiatives, and that's what these are. They're designed to like make create good fifis in the community, but at the same time, these odors are still present, and it's really ridiculous. And you mentioned Alaska, and it's worth pointing out like $60,000. Even like at the local level, that is chump change. And some of the people who called into the city commission pointed that out. Like that is, it's almost insulting considering the scale of the problem and how many people have been affected and how they've been affected. There was a resident who said basically, they're offering us crumbs, and said it was very belittling to the community. I would wholeheartedly agree. Other people pointed out even other CBAs that corporations analogous or like graphic packaging and graphic packaging themselves have had to do because of this pollution. They have offered much better terms, in other cities. So yeah, it's very insulting, and it is again. Graphic packaging is trying to use their own capitalist leverage to, get more tax breaks. It's like, oh, we provide jobs. You don't want us to, fly the coop, so to speak, even though, of course, it'd be better for their profits to stay here and maybe, like, clean up their act. But at the end of the day, props to a lot of the people who called in. There was a lot of talk of this community benefits agreement passing. But I think like a lot of public pressure and some keen-eyed people on the city commission were able to really, I don't think a lot of them kind of sewed the thread to the needle, pointing out like the whole fact that this is like a capitalist PR stunt. But at least, had people like Esteban Juarez saying just very common sense, like, we shouldn't sign any agreement like this until we get the results of the study back on like what this pollution is doing to residents of the north side. That's really the only answer you should have. Again, pointing out that any sort of community benefits agreement that is going to happen needs to run a lot deeper and get a lot more to the actual root of the problem than talking about food trucks and job fairs. Some of the residents called in and said like there should be like reparations for people's healthcare costs. They should pay for people to relocate if they're not going to do what they need to do to clean up the area and eliminate the odor and then the toxic smell and such.
Facts.
Yeah,
100% facts.
So props to the people for calling out some BS. But I think just my biggest takeaway from that is like, we can't. Don't let corporations think that they can get away with offering you chump change when they have done tangible harm to your community. Then try to turn around and all these little foo-foo things. Like, people don't need food trucks; they need clean air.
Right? Like don't settle for chicken nuggets, baby. Don't settle for chicken nuggets, baby. Like it especially when that company has made millions. And we have to get the soundboard so I can do the rock. The rock from WWF when he used to be like in the million. Yeah, I need that. I need that soundboard. That company has made millions in profit, and to the detriment of those that have lived on the north side, those that have had chronic breathing and respiratory problems, not to mention water as well that has also been messed up because of their doings. So like we need tangible solutions. Tangible solutions.
Yeah, that's right. Again, if you want to read up a little bit more about that, MLive did a pretty good write-up about this particular issue. Headline is Kzoo does not approve agreement with factory to benefit surrounding neighborhoods. And that does remind me, I did want to cap off a little bit talking about the media coverage of this CBA going into it, because again, that's also part of our mandate. We're supposed to critique local media and such. Everything I had seen coming up to this meeting about the CBA was overwhelmingly positive. And even I take a little issue with Brad Devereaux is actually pretty. I consider them pretty good journalists, but there's these kind of subconscious biases that sometimes come up. And it's even framing it as Kzoo does not approve agreement with factory to benefit surrounding neighborhoods. It makes you think well, why if it's going to benefit everybody, why didn't they agree with it? Oh no. And if you look at coverage from WWMT in particular, I haven't really watched the coverage from Wood TV8 or the others, but it's all been just listing all of these nice, cool, great things that Graphic Packaging is planning to do for the community. And oh gosh, isn't this great? And interviewing people from Graphic Packaging, talking about how we want to have a better relationship with the community. I tell you what, and we're going to be bringing all these job fairs and food trucks and blah, 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 blah. $60,000. And it's again, hyping up $60,000 like it's not a veritable drop in the buckets compared to the profit that they extract from this community.
Facts.
So yeah, again, I'm glad that we've got at least somebody covering some of these critiques now, but how come nobody nobody was trying to interview the other side on this before it happened? There wasn't any deeper look at why this CBA agreement was lacking. Any sort of critique about what the company and corporation should be doing in addition or instead. Just a lot of very glowing praise for look, this corporation is going to throw some breadcrumbs to the poor. Everybody clap. Oh, this is great, yeah. I did want to really just put an emphasis on that. It's again, if you've been reading media coverage about this, it's all been glowingly positive. Without anybody really getting real about, how kind of piss poor this agreement is, and the fact that it doesn't address the pollution.
I mean, it's almost because Graphic Packaging has donated to the media company, or probably is one of the donors of that media company, that it seemed like they were doing massive PR of said media company.
And, we talk a lot about how this works at the national level. Companies like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon don't air commercials on CNN because they think you or I are going to go out and buy some drones. There's a very specific reason the ad money goes where it does. And that also functions on the local level as well. And, particularly, WWMT, I don't want to give any too much hate. There's a lot of individual journalists there who do some pretty good work, but at the end of the day, they are owned by Sinclair Broadcasting, which has this very conservative, pro-capitalist bent to it.
And and Sinclair definitely takes money from Graphics Packaging. So yeah.
Yep. All right. So I don't have much else on that story. Quick reminder: y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. If you would like to donate to the station, there's a great way to do that. You can go, again, just go to that website I just mentioned, widerfm.org. And we have a little donate button. You can check that out. And there's lots of other great stuff on there. You can check out our newsletter, as well as the playlist for the songs that we play on the show. But yeah, please check that out. And for our own show, just a quick reminder, we are also on YouTube. We also have a podcast. You can find the most of your various podcasting apps. And starting in May, we will be broadcast on Public Media Network. So, we got folks in your circle who watch public access. We'll give you more information once we got a time slot and we know the details. But that will be yet another way that you can check out our program. All right, so Lawrence, I want to do a quick hit, real quick before I know we want to give y'all an update on what's going on in Grand Rapids, but I did want to mention there was recently a sting where Sheriff Fuller came out. He said they basically found a few sexual predators in the community, one of whom was a former police officer, Abraham Barton Honke. Sorry, it kind of sounds like honky, so I was okay. Aaron James Bauer, Guimond of Madelon, and Nathan Lee Ruzick of Madelon. It's worth mentioning the 49-year-old. He's former officer with the WMU Police Department. As most students know, the Western Michigan University has its own private police department that functions on campus. And essentially, they solicited sex from what they thought was a 15-year-old for something like $260. And there's just a couple of takeaways from this story, which is, an interesting media thing. This was framed as a trafficking story. And my only critique with that is, yes, but like, if you're talking about human trafficking as a problem in Kalamazoo, like, getting three guys who were trying to, have sex with underage people on the internet, that's you're swatting at those are very small fish, I should say. Like we are this Kalamazoo is this big hub, exists between Chicago and Detroit, and it is a real problem here. It's kind of like it is not nearly it's not talked about nearly enough, but it being a college town. It was like we've talked about stories on the show before of like especially women and femme people being like drugged at various bars, either like on campus or off campus. There's a really huge problem, and stinging three internet perverts is not necessarily going to penetrate the human trafficking problem in Kalamazoo, which is more of that is a criminal operation. That's not three scuzzy honkies on the internet.
Okay. I'm glad they're fired, and I want to say that.
Yeah,
they should be fired.
Yeah,
they should be in jail. That's the thing. These police officers are using positions of power to do things and because they're in a position of power in the city and especially Western's campus, trust them with positions of power.
That's probably the creepiest thing to me is like this guy who was trying to have sex with a 15-year-old was a campus police officer where he had a lot of direct contact with 17, 18, 19-year-olds. It's disturbing and gross.
So yes, they should be fired, but they should also be in jail. Police officers should be held to a higher esteem. If that happened to a teacher, if a teacher was trying to give $200 to a 15-year-old student, that teacher would be in jail. They just wouldn't be fired. They'd be in jail. If that was a priest or a pastor, they would be in jail. Firing the police officer is not enough. These people need to be in jail.
Yeah, and I don't have it right in front of me. I did hear at least one of them might be out on bond. It really does show you the power differential here. Like, you had a former cop who was trying to do this. We're about to talk about a story of somebody who got murdered for running, and I think like it also like something else that pumps into mind is like a lot of the cultural conversations we've been having lately, or I guess I should say right-wing hysteria about grooming and these trans people, these gay people are trying to groom our kids and turn them into sexual deviants and stuff. And I want to point out, like, that's a good example of that old fascist tactic of accuse your opponent of that of which you are guilty, which is to say, like, most of the time, and this is statistically, it's in the data, it is straight white men who are doing this crap.
Facts.
And this
Facts.
yeah, and in this case, a police officer. So
yeah. I mean, when I first read this story, it reminded me. Okay, when I first read this story, maybe because I watch a lot of cartoons, it reminded me of Huey's speech. If you remember the first season of the Boondocks, it reminded me of Huey's speech in the R. Kelly trial. Yeah. Like, you a fan of these police? Get some counseling to these police. Introduce them to some older women. Hide their camcorder, but don't pretend that they a hero. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? But the main thing. I mean, I'm joking about it, but no, it's a serious thing. But when we talk about defunding the police, that's defunding the police. When police officers are soliciting sex from minors, okay, you can have your discussions about the legalization or decriminalization of prostitution. I think it should be decriminalized. I think it should be legal. Tax and regulate it like we do everything else. We tax and regulate gambling. We tax and regulate marijuana. We tax and regulate alcohol. I think the Finland model of decriminalizing it is a little bit more of a better system than legalizing it. An argument can be made about it. I know John Oliver did a piece about sex work, because sex work is real work. And I also think that the Las Vegas model that they have is also, the Nevada model is also a good model, where you can have women screen their clients, and they can make sure that they're dealing with they can screen their clients to make sure that their clients are predators or things of that nature, and that these people who feel like they need to do this because they're desperate for some type of affection from another person, they can do it safely. So there are different arguments that we can have on decriminalization, legalization, and the John Oliver piece is absolutely dope. I wish everybody goes and see it. With that being said,
yeah, I do want to interject real quick, and I just want to say, like, I get where you're going with that, but at the same time, I feel like, and granted, I don't know these perpetrators personally, but a lot of the time, like, he's going, like, soliciting, he could have solicited somebody who was of age. It was because they were underage.
No, but that's my point. But that's my point. That's my point. I'm saying, the point that I was getting to, and I'm glad that you got to it, the fact that there are minors, these are minors. These are people who cannot consent. They're not consenting adults. That's why these people need to go to jail. We can have another conversation about should we, that's what I said. That's why I said it was a different conversation of bringing up sex work and being able to go down that road if you feel like you cannot get affection from another adult. But they weren't going after adults, they were going after children. That's why they need to go to jail. There is no excuse for it.
Mm-hmm. And I think maybe in the next few weeks we might talk a little.
That also leads to a very creepy situation that I thought about when I was reading the article. That's not the first time they did that, and since we know that, how many stories have we done of police officers, especially upper management of the police officers, the captains and internal affairs and all them, them knowing that the officers that they are around do some very shady stuff and they cover up for it.
Yeah.
That's the other question. How many of these other officers are also doing this that our local administration are covering up for? Because we've seen the police out. We literally just saw the police department cover up how they abused a woman when it came to the encampments, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And tried to say that she refused medical help when they were abusing her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because the homeless encampment, right? Like, we just saw that. We've seen a number of times of police officers lying on police reports about how they handle suspects, about suspects walking away. There was a story that I wanted to talk about a few weeks ago where the police officers ran over a person and said that he hit their car. They literally chased this dude down. It's on the dash cam. Mm-hmm. They chased him down and hit him with the car. Right?
Yeah.
So it just makes me, and this is why I said this is defunding the police. Their behavior takes away the trust that we have in them to protect and serve us. That is defunding the police. Mm-hmm. Outside of, yes, we need to put more money into social services and not have cops go up to every social disturbance that happens. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But that is what's taking away people's faith in policing.
Yeah, hear that. I think real quick, before we jump on to the next topic, a quick reminder, y'all are listening to 89.1 WIDR, could be listening to us on WIDRFM.org. And a quick reminder, if you want to check out we do a weekly newsletter. You can find that on the website. Gives you updates on what the station's up to, little music recommendations from the DJs, including yours truly. So make sure check that out. You get the chance. So I think, Lawrence, the next thing we wanted to hit on. So we talked about it a little last week. It was still really fresh, and the video hadn't dropped yet when we recorded. And I want a little update. So last week, one of the things I critiqued was like lack of media coverage. We've since seen, so that's changed. There's a lot more local media coverage of this now, as well as I believe it hit Democracy Now! Last week. Still not a lot of national press attention. I've not seen it being talked about on like CBS Evening News or Morning News or anything like that. So there is still a little gap of like how this story is getting covered at the national level, but at least locally, it seems like now there is much broader awareness of this crime that just happened up in the Grand Rapids community. Lawrence, I'm just going to kick it over to you. Your thoughts. Again, we've seen a lot more in this last week. Some large protests up in Grand Rapids, things like that. But
speaking of this, there is a protest going on in Thursday in Lansing. If you want to be a part of it, if you could not be a part of the other protest that was taking place for this injustice. What I saw and what I heard only confirmed my suspicion that the cops are going to somehow try to spin that that the victim brought this upon himself. A few facts before we get into any more of the commentary. It's clear he was trying to get away from the police. Cool. Running from the cops does not automatically mean you should be executed. Especially when there's another person in the car that you can talk to. You can set up a perimeter. You can bring in other law enforcement to track the person down. You could use your taser. Now let's talk about the taser. Tasers, by law enforcement standards, are non-lethal. To be taser certified, you have to be tased by said taser. That means the police officer, with their body armor on and clothing on, have been tased. So even in the best case scenario, and again, I want to argue the best case scenario here. Let's say this man, Patrick, had his taser. Okay, cool. Best case scenario, that still is a non-lethal weapon by police officer standards. Not to mention if he's able or lucky enough to get a shot off. Because I also want to remind everybody, tasers are a good defensive weapon. Here's the problem: if you're touching the person that you're tasing, you will also be shocked too. Because the current has to go somewhere, and it will go into your stupid behind too. So the third thing, he's on top of the man and he shoots him in the back of the head. We didn't get a chance to cover a story, but there was another story that came out I think a few days before this one, where there was a white man with a knife who the police officers were literally talking to in a crisis situation. The white man came down and started to viciously stab the police officers. The police officers not only fought him back in hand-to-hand combat, they shot him in the leg so he will stop fighting them. They wounded this man, and he is now in jail waiting his trial. There were multiple officers that was at that scene. A little bit apples and oranges, right? That's what most people will say. Let me also remind everybody that that's not the first time we have seen people attack the police officers and still be alive at the end of the day. People who were convicted killers kill multiple people, and the police officers still take them in alive. This man, even if you want to make the best argument in the world that he had the officer's taser and that he was resisting, he was on his stomach, face down on the ground. That means he could not turn around or have his hands in the position to shoot or attack the police officer in the best case scenario. I don't know if anybody's actually, but from someone who's used to doing wrestling and martial arts, when your stomach down, in your best case scenario, you're trying to get your hands on the ground so you can get up. In the best case scenario, even if you're fighting back and you have your hands above your head to stop from blows hitting you, your hands are above your head in a defensive manner.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in the video his hands were behind his back. Is that correct?
Yeah. So if your hands are behind your back, you're face down on the ground, and you still get shot in the back of the head, then that means that the police officer thought that it was appropriate to end your life. And I find it ironic that the police body cam footage cuts off during the scramble that's going on the ground, but cuts back on during when they're performing medical when they're trying to save his life after he put a bullet in his head. But the footage that was actually shows the actual moments of his death comes from the other bystander who started filming. The person you could have talked to if that person ran. Like, come on now. Like, no, it's wrong. It's wrong on a multitude of levels. It was wrong that the police department didn't want to give this officer's name. It was wrong that and you could hear it in the language that they were using, that they're gonna try to justify it. They're gonna try to use him resisting as justification for his murder.
So that's because right now we're waiting to see if the officer is going to be charged, and that's the thing is, I got it 2 to 10. I got it 2 to 1. No, I have it like 7, 8 to 1. Yeah.
Like the odds are not in our favor that he's gonna get charged.
Yeah. And again, something I want to emphasize. Again, we have the superstructural critiques that we do on our show, talking about the history of policing as an institution. Why they really, again, modern police, which have only existed for about 150 years, really trace their roots to slave catchers and strike breakers. And we have that superstructural critique. And there's also these like really zooming in, thinking about how do other professionals handle these situations. And the fact of the matter is, our country is full of I'm thinking like mental health care workers, social workers, etc., who are trained how to deal with violent situations in a de-escalatory manner. And fact of the matter is, if there had been one of those types of professionals on the scene there, they would not have put themselves in a position where they were basically wrestling Lyoya to the ground. They wouldn't have put themselves in a position where, they could have access to the taser. But even in a situation like that, professionals like that are trained. If they were to get their hands on a taser or a knife or etc., there is a number of things and tactics of how to disarm them non-violently without using lethal force. And the fact of the matter is, our police have, there have been these kind of not so substantive, trains to try to train cops to these tactics. But the question arises is just again, it's a social structural thing. These cops are kind of still trained to this day to kind of view themselves as an occupying army, and the criminals is these invading marauders that you have to go to war with. And as long as that ethos exists, which I think is just too ingrained in policing, to begin with, we're always going to have outcomes like this, where a situation that could have been resolved non-violently ends up resulting in the execution-style death of this young man.
Let me also just add to the fact that we've discussed defund the police, and we've discussed the slogan of black. We've talked about Black Lives Matter and campaign. What was it? Campaign Zero. Their 10 policy platforms of what they want to do to reform policing. We've also talked about how, yes, defund police is not popular. It's not a popular slogan, and I'll concede that. You know what I'm saying? The accountability that we were asking for when it came to Campaign Zero, when it came to police officers and their escalating force, that the things that were in that policy platform, still applies here. There are multiple other avenues that when we just explained, that could have still left this man alive. Just because you're insubordinate, or just because you're not listening to the police officer, does not mean you need to meet your maker. Just because you run away does not mean that you deserve to die. And I want everyone who listens to this, because there's probably going to be people who listen to this, it's going to be like, man, no, he should have just complied, man, and that's right. I want you to remember that, and think, would you be okay with that if that was your brother, your dad, your sister, your mother? If the police officers treated everybody treated everyone that rioted at the riot at the Capitol, right? Mm-hmm. The same way that they treated this man, would you be okay with it? when they stormed the Capitol, would you have been okay with the police officers there starting to shoot and execute everyone that was resisting the police?
Of course, a lot of people, those what-if questions, like what if that group had been anything but mostly white and male?
Right. Yeah. So keep that same energy, man. Like, and yes, I probably will be going to the protest Thursday, in Lansing, and yeah, like, I want to see justice. I want justice in this case. I want to see this police officer should stand trial. And it was a horrifying execution, and that's what it was. It was an execution when you, as a police officer, are trained to de-escalate. Also, that goes to the number one thing. The VIN number plates didn't match the car. The VIN number plates did not match the car, so you stop the car. The dude gets out. Obviously, like, he can understand you, you can understand him. Barely. Okay, cool. You see that he wants to run. You can't sit and wait for them to come back and talk. When you see that he's the driver, if he's the driver, you go back to the other car and you talk to the other person that's inside. You wait for backup, because eventually that man who just ran is probably gonna need to get that car back.
Yeah.
like, come on, man. Common sense, man. We know common sense ain't common,
no.
But it is what it is. We have other stories that we do need to talk about.
I did have one last thing on this story. It's something that's been on my mind since I heard about Patrick Lyoya, and particularly like the story of his family coming here from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm going to keep this short. I'm not going to do a whole historical lecture here, but I think it is important for the listeners, give a little historical context to that, and it also just really makes the situation all the more less tragic and ironic, honestly. But it's just some cliff notes on the Democratic Republic of Congo. So back in the 19th century, that was where King Leopold II was operating, which you don't know. A lot of people call him the Hitler of Africa. It's just he genocided a ton of people.
15 million.
Yeah. And that was like the prequel or prerequisite to, again, a lot of colonization, resource extraction in the 20th century. Congo is pretty rich in rare earth minerals, uranium, stuff like that. And around early 1960s, 1961 specifically, the DRC had their first successful revolution for independence. Patrice Lumumba was democratically elected, and he had ideas about making the Democratic Republic of Congo more self-sufficient, of making sure there was a more equal distribution of resources. And Lawrence, I think you might be able to already tell where this story is going. So because he wanted to do stuff that would actually be good for the people of his country, the CIA, well, they didn't like that much. They thought he might be a potential communist. According to the CIA themselves, it was their goal to stabilize the government and minimize communist influence in a strategically vital, resource-rich location in Central Africa. And just one other quote, Alan Dulles, who's got an airport named after him, his former director of the CIA, said, "We conclude that Lumumba's removal must be an urgent and prime objective, and that under existing conditions this should be a high priority for our covert action." So long story short, much like Salvador Allende or any number of democratically elected social democrats, Lumumba was assassinated by the U.S. government.
Yep.
And he was replaced by Mobutu Seko. He was basically a U.S.-backed dictator. He executed political rivals, bribed officials. He enriched himself at the expense of the population. and he ruled over DRC until about 1997. Unfortunately, even after that didn't really bring stability. Now, according to the New York Times, Congo residents of the DRC continue to die at a rate of an estimated 45,000 per month. And that is estimates of people who've died from the long-range conflict, going from 900,000 to 5.4 million people. The death toll is due to widespread disease and famine. Reports indicate that almost half of the individuals who died are children under 8 years of age, and there have also been frequent reports of weapon bearers killing civilians, destruction of property, and widespread sexual violence. And it's important to note this is going on because of that initial instability that was wrought. And as of now, there are a lot of armed factions who are competing over what? Territories that are valuable in these rare earth minerals to Western interests who want to extract that wealth. And it's important, they talked about fleeing the DRC for America, where they thought it would be safe, where they thought they would find safe harbor from a lot of the violence and instability that, again, was caused by none other than the U.S. government. So this all ended up kind of just coming around full circle. Patrick Lyoya here in Grand Rapids, open Grand Rapids, Michigan, basically completed this circle of imperialist violence, and he paid for it with his life. And it's just really gross to think about when you really sketch that out. The whole history, the U.S. government is the reason Lyoya's family had to come here, and in the end, racist American policing brought violence to them.
The U.S. government brought to you by the racist policing.
Yeah.
I still find it amazing that when we talk about international figures, people like King Leopold does not get the recognition he deserves for being one of the world's biggest terrorists. He killed more people, or almost as many people, than Stalin and Hitler. And he killed 15 million Africans in the course of what he did. But he does not get the recognition he deserves for being the terrorist that he is. Most colonists in Africa don't get the recognition they deserve. Yeah. But yeah, we have some other stories that we do need to talk about. So I want to talk. I have a quick hit that I want to talk about. There's a few. Ron DeSantis is a nutcase. This is my quick hit of the day. Before we get to Ron DeSantis is a nutcase, I want to say R.I.P. to Kay Slay. I want to say R.I.P. to Gilbert Godfrey, but because I'm a hip hop head, and there's Democracy Now! Does this wonderful list of freedom fighters that also passed away, and there's so many that passed away over the last few weeks that I don't even get to, so I just gonna refer to Democracy Now! And Amy Goodman and the good work that they do. But Kay Slay, as a hip hop head that grew up in some of the wonderful, more modern years of my youth, Kay Slay was one of the greatest DJs and also graffiti artists of our generation. If you haven't seen Style Wars, if you haven't seen Style Wars or any of those other movies that talks about New York graffiti and hip hop, please look him up. He was one of the greatest to ever do it when it comes to graffiti writing, and then he became one of the greatest DJs in the modern hip hop era. The reason why the Diplomats mix are who they are today is because of people like Kay Slay. The Jay-Z, the Nas's, the Eminems, the 50 Cents, all those mixtapes that he would get popping when these artists were young artists and they weren't being played. He would push the culture and push them forward and push the music of being an ambassador for growth, development, and for the streets, keeping it where it is, and keeping it urban, keeping it street. And he was an arbiter of the principles of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? And the elements of the 5 elements of hip hop and the 4 core principles. If anybody tells you there's no 5 elements of hip hop, they don't know hip hop.
No.
He embodied the principles and elements of hip hop, and it is, as I always say, I heard this from a friend, and I love quoting it. It's whenever an elder passes, that is a library of information that's gone. And he was a fantastic library of music, and again, of culture, of history, and everything like that. And man, he passed from COVID, folks. He was struggling with COVID for months in the hospital, and he passed from COVID. It's still real. Like, come on, man. Get your life together. But anyway, rest in peace to him. Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is a nutcase. How is Ron DeSantis a nutcase? He's banning books, math books, because they may have critical race theory being taught. Now, let me remind you, he's banning elementary school books.
Math books.
Elementary school math books, because they may have CRT attached to it. This is not a joke. This is not a test. As Kevin Hart once said in one of his stand-ups, this is a cold black. This is not a test. This is not a drill. Florida, get your mans, okay? I need for the Democrats in Florida. I need for the people in Florida. Get your mans. He's crazy. How? Okay, the Republican Party has always been the party of ignorance. Now we're talking about Reagan, Nixon. It's shifted. It has shifted. It has been the party. It has went from not just being the party of intelligent racists like Nixon and Reagan. It has shifted to the party of ignorance. Bush. Let me remind you. Bush, Palin, Trump, and now you have people like DeSantis and the other dude and Greg Abbott in Texas, which is another story that we need to get to about how TikTok users called out Greg Abbott's illegal enforcement on the border and how that's led to inflation.
Really?
That is also another story that we have to talk about. But yeah, banning math books. Well, again, they had a war on science because they didn't want to believe climate change is real because they were being paid by fossil fuel industry. They don't want to believe social scientists when it comes to race and when it comes to race, justice, and equality. If it's for black people, immigrant people, LGBTQ people, they don't want to listen to social scientists. And remember, they always say that we just need STEM classes. We don't need to teach the arts, liberal arts, and how liberal Hollywood's taking over the country. We just need to teach kids math, science, and just the basic arithmetic. Now they're saying we need to take away math. I swear to God, they're gonna come for reading next. They're gonna come for. They already have because Republicans have been burning books. Like, they've been burning books in this country. We did stories about it. Mm-hmm. They are going after reading. They're going after math. Republicans are nuts. Not saying the Democrats are better, but the Republicans are nuts.
Yeah, no, for real.
Okay, so. This is one of the main things. We wanted to talk about a giant race that's taking place in 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. It's taking place in Ohio. It's the Congressional 11 in Ohio. It's Nina Turner's race with the rematch against Shontel Brown. Now, for some of y'all may not know who Shontel Brown is. Shontel Brown is the person who was endorsed, who after the seat became vacant because of the Secretary of HUD being taken from Ohio and being put in Biden's administration. That seat opened up, And Nina Turner, who Killer Mike has called our modern day Shirley Chisholm, which I agree with that assessment, was in that race against 13 other people, but the corporatists in the party, Hillary Clinton, and also Republican donors, which we will get to, by the way, backed Shontel Brown. They literally flooded her campaign full of money. Around, I think it was $2 million initially, then it went up to like 15 or something crazy, something like that. Something crazy, and they drowned Nina Turner out. Well, Nina's back. Nina's been fighting back, and she's coming back, and she's coming back for that tail. She's coming back for that. Here is the thing. Shontel Brown is being backed by multiple oil lobbyists. Is being backed by multiple anti-liberty, anti-freedom organizations, just to maximize the profits of in the service of and she's being backed by those things, and her policy supports her donors. This is not me saying this. This is coming from an article in Lever News. The Lever News, which is David Sirota's outlet. If you don't know about it, they changed from being the Daily Poster to Lever News. You should read it. And the article which I will be reading from is let me pull it up real quick. Hold on. Hold on 1 second. Oil mogul bankroll attempt to buy a Democratic primary. To crush Nina Turner, oil moguls tap strategists petroleum reserves of cash for Shontel Brown. Shontel Brown is basically being flooded and bankrolled by oil lobbyists who are also against the Iran nuclear deal. Reading from the let me read from the article. 1 month after Samsung's energy mogul Stacey Strassman, I don't know how to say her name, poured $2 million into the DMFI PAC, the Democratic Majority for Israel. Yeah, so
okay.
They tell you up front what they're for. They're for the Democrats Majority for Israel PAC. The group has purchased TV ads starting Monday to boost Representative Shontel Brown in the primary campaign rematch against former state senator Nina Turner in a newly redrawn Cleveland congressional district. The primary election is hold on 1 second. The primary election is May 3rd. Last year, the Democrats Majority Fund for Israel PAC spent $1.9 million against Turner, promoting Brown, helping the latter to win the seat in a special election. The group also spent $1.4 million attacking Bernie Sanders during the 2020 campaign.
Oh, of course they did.
Yeah. So, Turner, who was the co-chair for Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2020 competition campaign, has been campaigning for a Green New Deal and pushing the Biden administration to ban fracking. Remember, fracking is a big industry in Ohio. It's also why there are places in Ohio where people can set their water on fire.
Yeah.
That is not a joke. That is not a punchline. That is real facts. You can look it up. People can literally set their water on fire, their tap on fire, because of the fracking that's going on at your in their neighborhoods. Now look, I live on the north side. I've lived in a polluted neighborhood all my life. Okay, I'm in my 30s. I've lived in a polluted neighborhood all my life. I have never, ever in my life thought I would see the day where water can be set on fire. Okay, but anyway, we're gonna continue. Brown has declined to co-sponsor some of the Democrats' most high-profile climate change legislation, including the Climate Emergency Act, even after the United States scientists recent dire warning about the crisis. Let me remind everybody, for those who do not know, that we have a little bit less than a decade to get off fossil fuels and move to greener energy, or the human race will go extinct.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah. And I know for some people that might be hyperbole. Look, I understand that you're not going to be here to see this because you're probably too old and maybe not understand that, but your children and your children after you are going to be living with the devastations of climate change. As a matter of fact, we still are to this day. If you saw the mudslide that happened in Africa, if you saw the typhoon that just also happened overseas, or the hurricanes, the once in 500-year hurricanes that has hit our country every 2 to 3 years.
We're currently in the appetizer phase of the climate breakdown 4-course meal. You want to get dessert. Ooh.
So before I continue, because I still have more to read from this article, let's just break down some basic points. This pact, which is against the Iran nuclear deal, which Chantel Brown has openly said she's against, and this pact, which is also against the Green New Deal, and Chantel Brown is not for high profile climate change provisions that her own Democratic Party supports, and she's a Democrat, and she's not supporting these things because her donor from this pact is telling her not to, and she's telling them not to by giving her it was 1.4 million, 1.9, and it's around $4 million.
Yeah. Decidedly not chump change.
Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, okay. We just gonna keep it going. While, and this is the funny part, while Brown's campaign website says that she supports a policy layout in the Green New Deal, she has not co-sponsored the measure in Congress. She's in Congress, but she won't co-sponsor it. Okay, cool. The chairwoman, the oil mogul, who I can't say her name, chairs the Oklahoma-based Siemens Energy, whose website describes it as a company that was founded to allow her family to remain in the oil and gas exploration and production business following their sales of Simon investments. So she has a donor. that's funding the Democratic majority for Israel. Can anybody tell me where Israel is in Ohio?
Is there? I think it's a bit further away. I don't know.
Right.
So I have a map on me.
Right. So Israel does not like the Iran nuclear deal. This donor, who's an oil baron, who's an oil mogul, doesn't like that deal, but also doesn't like the Green New Deal to help save our planet. And the person that they are trying to make sure it does not get into Congress or any type of power, they're funding all their money against they're putting their money into Nina Turner's opponent, which is Chantel Brown. We talk about this all the time, that politicians go to the money. They follow the green. And we're not talking about the Green New Deal, and we're not talking about them being vegetarians. They follow the money. The money has told her to bend the knee and to go against policies that her own party supports. What makes her any different than a Republican?
Yeah. And yet, though, I heard, didn't she get endorsed by the Progressive Caucus?
And that comes to the second part of the story. I'm glad you brought it up. So Chantel Brown did a very interesting thing that is also noted in the article. The day after Nina Turner said that she's running to get that seat again, running to get her out of the seat, Chantel Brown, who started her first year as a new blue Democrat, the new blue caucus, which is the Blue Dog Democrat Caucus, the conservative Democrat caucus. She joined the Progressive Caucus the day after. And the Progressive Caucus chose to accept her. Okay. The Progressive Caucus has no standards at this point. If Jim Jordan wanted to join the Progressive Caucus, they would let him.
Yeah.
Like the Progressive, because the majority of people who's in the Progressive Caucus are a bunch of corporatists. They're a bunch of neoliberal corporatists, and they're useless.
They may give lip service to certain progressive policies, but as you mentioned, when it comes to co-sponsoring bills or actually voting on them, it's like, oh, where'd they go? Ooh, yeah.
So, and this is Pramila Jayapal is supposed to be the leader of the Progressive Caucus, and I understand that. And remember, I want to also remember the 6 Justice Democrats that voted against the infrastructure bill being detached from the Build Back Better deal. That they were right, and they rejected what the Progressive Caucus, which was going forward with the detaching of the bills, and they were proven right because Build Back Better did not pass. So this is also me throwing shots at the Justice Democrats as well. Why haven't y'all endorsed Nina yet? Bernie has. Bernie's come out and already said that he's endorsing Nina. Now look, I understand that AOC and everybody else is busy. I get it. They've been on Vanity Fair. They've been doing all these other stuff. I get it. I understand. Nina, I know, supported y'all. I know she supported y'all. Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks maxed out, and he's not a rich dude. He was like, dog, that hurt. He maxed out in giving money to Nina's campaign and trying to get Rebellion PAC, also helptherebellion.com, to run ads in the next 2 weeks. Good ads for Nina, and also attack ads that's pointing out this corruption. Because that's what that is. That is pay to play corruption. That is a oil baron saying, I'm renting this politician, and this politician is going to do what I say, or I will not give them any money. We've recently had a Republican come out and say that quiet part out loud, which is another story we will get to. But the fact that the Progressive Caucus endorsed this woman shows you how Pramila Jayapal, Ro Khanna, and Mark Pocan, all the people who I liked, who are actual progressives, who are good fighters on policy. The white lady who always has the clipboards and always has the demonstrations, Katie Porter. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Where are y'all? Y'all know this woman's not a progressive. Now y'all have bylaws saying that y'all gotta support the incumbent, but when the incumbent is against everything you stand for, why are you supporting them? Because of their feelings? Is the policy more important than your civility?
A lot of it does boil. I think they make that argument. It's like, well, we don't want that. You know, there would be like a tension if we, threw them out of the caucus or something, and they got reelected. It's like, so what? It's like, sometimes you can't play patty cake with people who are against your agenda. You know.
Let me remind everybody the thing again. I'm not for I'm not for character purity tests. Okay. Now, character is important, and if you're for character purity tests, that's cool. For me, I'm policy over everything. Because while I can care about somebody's character, I'm about the policy first. I'm policy over everything. Miss Brown is not for universal health care. She's not for universal free college and tuition. She's not for a Green New Deal. She's not for getting back. Think about the irony of that. President Obama and Vice President Joe Biden's biggest accomplishment, arguably one of their biggest accomplishments, was getting the Iran nuclear deal. Mm-hmm. That was one of the biggest accomplishments of the Democratic Party that we can say that because we stand on. It was taken away by Trump. And she is on the side of not bringing that deal back. Biden's not fighting for it either, and Biden's just as much to blame. But a black woman is not in favor of one of the best policies that the black president passed. Even on identity politics alone, that is garbage. Absolutely garbage. And as a woman who has children, as a woman who has a family, you don't care about how the climate will also affect your children and your family, and you're not for legislations to fix the situation before it gets worse? Like, come on, son. Like, it bothers me on a visceral level that this woman stands against a large portion of what the progressives should be fighting for, yet the progressive caucus is backing her. This is like, that's like the Red Cross endorsing Dracula. You know what I'm saying? like this is like oh my god. This is like
if we really want to get the agenda passed here in the Congress of the hen house, I think this fox really knows what's going on. Like we got
right, dog. Like,
we got to pal up with this fox here.
That's like watching an episode of Nip Tuck, and they're saying that that one of the surgeons is Jack the Ripper. Like, you know what I'm saying? like you know what I'm saying? Like what is this? What get your mans, get progressives. Okay, so let me also do this. Yes, I'm not on the camp of saying that the Justice Democrats are frauds or the fraud squad like Jimmy Dore. I'm not going down that road because I'm never going to agree 100% with a politician. Obviously, that's just reality. Life is not black and white. It is subjective. So when Cori Bush and the Justice Democrats slept on the steps of Congress because the Biden administration wanted to get rid of the moratorium on evictions and stuff, that was brave. You give them praise. When AOC wanted to hold Amazon accountable because people died in the Amazon buildings because of the violent storms, and they were told that if they didn't stay, they would lose their jobs. So she was fighting for workers then. I applaud her. I don't applaud her for leaving Smalls and them high and dry, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But so again, we criticize based off of what they did, what they're doing. Leaving Nina Turner and not backing her is a giant L. 100%.
Yeah. And it really does go like, and again, I probably like my personal politics are a little different. I'm a little critical of reformism and such, but like I think even if you think that's a worthwhile political project to get involved in, like you got to have some minimum standards, and like inviting a corporatist into your reform-minded caucus is just ridiculous. It's ridiculous, and if you want to make people less cynical about our current political system, that's the absolute wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
So we're already about a quarter after, Lawrence. If you have other stories, maybe we can hold some extra innings until about 2:30 if you had other stuff you wanted to hit on. But throw the ball in your court. What else did you want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I mean, we've already said that we're gonna start working on some other stories. The Republican who said the quiet part out loud about money and politics, we can save that for the stream, because we're gonna stream. Or we're gonna stream and record and then do that. We can save all those other stories later, and we'll pull them up so that the audience can see them then, and things of that nature. So let's do that.
All right, sounds good. I guess then we'll go ahead and wrap stuff up. Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right. Y'all have been listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR Kalamazoo. I want to thank y'all for tuning in. And again, there's a couple ways you can find us. We have a YouTube channel. You can find videos. We upload every episode on the radio as you hear it. Then we also got a podcast where we kind of put together the best of. You can check out our full interview with Catherine Joyce. We uploaded that to YouTube. And if you prefer a podcast version, we will have that uploaded by the end of the week. All right, everybody. Until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution, and stay tuned for Electro Pop Therapy. I got some great music planned today, including at 3 o'clock, we're going to be doing our annual tribute to Prince. Rest in purple peace. Anyway, keep your locked, and until next time, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.